to order this meeting at 6:01 p.m.
Okay, we can go ahead and stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, agenda item C, roll call. Committee member Deanda. Sykes.
Present.
Jones. Casper. Abong.
Present.
Walsh. Vice Chair Morris. And Chair Heller. Okay, I would like to remind the audience if they wish to address the Redistricting Advisory Committee, they must submit a white request to speak form located at the podium in the back of the council chamber. Citizens can submit public comment to the Redistricting Advisory Committee electronically no later than 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments received before the deadline will be sent to the Redistricting Advisory Committee and will be part of the record and will be mentioned as part of the public comment portion of the agenda. Material may be emailed to cityclerk@cityofmerced.org and should be limited to 300 words or less. Any correspondence received after 1 p.m. will be distributed to the Redistricting Advisory Committee and retained for the official record. You may provide telephonic comments via voicemail by calling 209-388-8688 by no later than 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to be added to the public comment. Voicemails will be limited to a time limit of 3 minutes. Also, for those audience members who wish to hear the council meeting translated into Spanish or Hmong, please let our interpreters know.
Hola, mi nombre es Rita. Si ustedes necesitan servicios de interpretación, yo voy a estar aquí en la parte de atrás del auditorio. Gracias.
Giờ này thì sao tàu lúc trong sĩ thả mà nó chạy ô lúc mong nó dễ cụ tôi nhớ được nó cụ chạy lúc mong lúc này ô trong tàu.
Okay, agenda item D, public comment. The clerk's office received one email from Jennifer Sarah Ligu. Said email was sent to the Redistricting Advisory Committee prior to the meeting. And agenda item E, consent calendar. E1, Redistricting Advisory Committee minutes of August 12th, 2021.
Does anybody have any questions on this item before we pass a motion to accept it?
Approve the Redistricting Advisory Committee meeting August 12th.
Do I have a second? Motion carries.
I have a motion by committee member Walsh and a second by committee member Deanda. With a roll call vote, committee member Deanda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Sykes?
Yes.
Jones? Casper? Abong?
Yes.
And Walsh.
Affirmative.
Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes before we can start our public hearing, so we'll just take a break. So we'll go to agenda item F, public hearings. F1, public hearing to be heard at 6:15 to receive a report from staff on the redistricting process and permissible criteria to be considered to redraw the council district map to receive input from the community regarding the redrawing of election district boundaries.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Tilton with the National Demographics Corporation, a really fancy title. It's good to be here, and thank you for your service on this project. It's an important project for really making an impact for the next 10 years for the city of Merced. I'm fairly local. In fact, about the 30 jurisdictions that I'm working with going through this process, along with a couple of going through the districting process for the first time. It's been really excited to be working in the Central Valley. This is where I grew up and I raised my kids, and so it's good to be here with the real people of California, right? So we're going through this process, and it is a process. We initially met with council on June 21st. It was decided at that council meeting, or I don't know if it was decided at that particular council meeting, I can't recall, but it was decided to move to an advisory commission. And that's why we are here today. The federal census was released on August 12th. It was about 4 days sooner than we thought. However, it should have been released back in March, but due to the pandemic, the realities of our lives have all changed, and it changed with the census release as well. Doesn't really impact a whole lot with the city of Merced because we have until April 17, 2022 to finish this process. Where it really is tight is with counties, board of supervisors, those who have a June 2022 election. They have to be finished in 3 months from today. So it's really a compressed piece. And while we have the census data available, it doesn't really matter for California because California is going to take those data and adjust the data with the state's prisoner population. And there's nearly 100,000 inmates in the California prison system, and they're going to take those inmates and place them back in their previous jurisdiction before they were incarcerated. Not literally, just figuratively. And so it's, while we could look at the federal census data and get an idea, we just don't know how much it's going to be impacted based on the prisoner population being reallocated to a jurisdiction. You know, how many do we have that previously resided in the city of Merced? We don't know that, but we'll have an idea when it's released on September 20th, next Monday, which is great because we knew that it was going to take 4 to 6 weeks after the federal census was released that California is going to need time to scrub the data and apply the allocation of the prisoners. That's going to take a few days for our system to catch up. We have no idea how they're going to release the data and how it's going to impact our system and other systems, other demographers as well. While that is a reality, the law says we can't even draft maps for 3 weeks after that release date anyway. Those with December deadlines, they have to wait a week, but it's not really going to impact you again. As part of this process, and I'm going to talk a little bit about helping define communities of interest and neighborhoods in the city, we're really hoping to get that information, additional information from a public workshop on November 6th at 10 a.m. And again, that's to gather information on communities of interest, neighborhoods, and also to folks can learn about mapping tools that I'm going to show to you as well. Your next public hearing will be December 1st in here. And again, the intention of these public hearings is to educate individuals on the process and to solicit input on the communities in the city. We're going to have another public workshop on January 12th. And the same thing would apply as the earlier workshop. So we're really trying to get robust data as part of this process. And then on January 22nd, you're going to receive draft maps that NDC, National Demographics Corporation, will provide a couple, But we really hope that we get draft maps from members of the community for you to consider. And it'll be at that particular meeting that the advisory commission is going to make recommendations to city council as to maps to consider when it meets on February 7th. So we will look at all the maps, and all the maps will have data associated with them, a robust data table. We'll guide you through which maps are compliant and which ones are not. More often than not, those that are not compliant are not balanced equally through the district population distribution, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I do want to note that while this advisory commission can make recommendations to council, council does not have to take your recommendation. That's a reality. Hopefully I didn't burst anybody's bubble with that information, but hopefully it will take into consideration and honor you for your work and look at the recommendations that you've made. Additionally, even though you've made recommendations, individuals can still submit maps after you make those recommendations, and council could consider those maps as well at that February 7th meeting. The intention of that February 7th meeting is for council to pare down whatever recommendations you made or whatever other maps have been submitted to maybe 1 to 3 going into that March 7th hearing, to where council will then select a map that the city will use for the next 10 years. So that's really the process between now, actually when we started in June, until March 7th, 2022, and you can see it's well before the deadline of April 17th. So staff has a great plan ahead with getting this process through. It's a very important process, as mentioned as well. So what we're looking at when we're looking to submit or make recommendations to council is we have to follow certain rules. We must follow the federal laws. And number one, we want each of the districts to have equal population. That's going to be difficult to do, to truly get 100% equal. You're going to have variance. The Supreme Court says that you can have less than 10% variance as a whole. So there's going to be some districts that'll have more than others. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we can have no racial gerrymandering. And those are givens. Now we shift to the middle column for the California criteria for cities. And this is based on the recent Fair Maps Act, that we must follow in this particular order, that the districts must be geographically contiguous. Basically, you can have no breaks. Now, we have islands in the city that you're going to see, those have to be taken into consideration. To the best extent possible, we don't want to divide neighborhoods or communities of interest. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. We'd like to have easily identifiable boundaries. And we want our districts to be compact. We don't want to have districts that have these strange looking tentacles reaching into another district. That's just ripe for allegations and accusations of gerrymandering, usually political gerrymandering. And we shall not favor or discriminate against a political party. So we're looking at the column to the left and the middle column. We must follow those particular rules as we're looking at draft maps. And again, I will help you, but it's really to help and inform individuals who might want to draft maps that they must follow those rules. If you're able to do that column on the left and the middle column, then you can consider some of the more traditional redistricting principles. But it's going to be a challenge enough just to meet the criteria in the column on the left and the middle column. So neighborhoods. We're asking folks in the city of Merced to help us define what is their neighborhood and what are some of the identifiable boundaries. Like, are there major roads, Highway 99, canals, the Central Valley is full of canals, railroad tracks. What are some of those boundaries that one could see, yeah, I know on the other side of this particular boundary is another district, et cetera. And while sometimes we don't get a whole lot of public testimony, we can always use planning records or other types of documents as well to help us inform that particular work. Same applies for communities of interest. Communities of interest are really areas that have communities that have shared social and economic interest, or they might be impacted by city policies. I like to use examples of like homeowners associations. They have shared interest, etc. Then you want to look at, would that community benefit from being included within a single district for the purposes of effective and fair representation, or would it like to have multiple representation? And I lived in a 55 plus community, and I strongly believe that the individuals in the 1,500 homes in that community, the HOA, would rather have multiple representation at city council than just a single voice. So that's something that we want to consider as well, and council will as also. But the communities of interest may not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. So again, we're looking at possible neighborhoods and communities, and we want to fill out these particular sheets. And in the absence of any data so far, I just threw up the general plan. Through these meetings, through our workshops, hopefully we can come up with a list of neighborhoods and communities that we're getting data from folks who attend the workshops, who are submitting through the city's website to help us inform both you and council what are the neighborhoods and communities to consider when we're looking at maps. The piece about annexation and particularly like UC Merced has come up, and under the elections code 21623, it's pretty specific, and you have it there on your in your packet. But basically, it says council may adopt new boundaries for each council district under the circumstances described above if both of the following conditions are met. And it says there are, number one, there are more than 4 years until the council is next required to redistrict. And number two is the biggie. The population of the new territory being annexed or consolidated is greater than 25% of the city's population, as determined by the most federal decennial census. So number two pretty much answers your question in that respect. The city has worked with National Demographics Corporation to provide some public mapping tools. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but it doesn't matter if an individual uses any of the mapping tools that are available. If someone drew a map on a napkin, we're going to accept it. So it doesn't really matter. We try to get as much engagement as possible as part of this process and not exclude anybody because they may not have particular tools available. This is not necessarily a tool to draw maps. This is more of a review map, a map review tool that'll be on the website. It'll show all the draft maps that have been submitted once that NDC goes through and pretties them up for presentation. But anybody can look to see what these maps are, and they can layer them, they can see the differences, etc. This is a representation of Lake Forest. This morning, the city received this simple map drawing tool. It doesn't have the representation of the city of Merced in it, but it's a similar concept. Basically, it's a paper map. The paper map is divided into population units, and inside each of those population units is a figure, a number. The key here is to use a variety of colors to draw up your districts. And then based on the colors that you use, add up all the numbers by hand and see if you have equal population. Okay, a little bit laborious, but it at least allows for someone to submit a map in a very simple manner. You'll see that there's the name, phone, and email on there. We really want to be able to contact individuals so that we can ask them if we are best representing their thoughts. While anything that is submitted to the advisory commission or council or to the city is public record, but the draft map will not be named after them. The map will be 101, 102, 103, whatever. But you know, if they're doing it for ego purposes, I'm sorry, it's not going to be the Johnson map. It's just for us to get clarity on what their particular thoughts were. Similar tool, instead of the population figures in each of the population units, there's a single identifiable number. And that number, if you drop that into an Excel spreadsheet and tell that number what district you want to go into, it'll populate everything for you. It'll do all the demographics for you. It requires a little bit of understanding of Excel, but it doesn't take that much time to figure it out. It's a really cool tool, and like I said, what's really nice about it, it'll produce all the data. I'm going to pause right here for a second just to make sure at this point, while the city did receive these two tools today, like the rest of California, all these tools are used with estimated data. So again, because the California data is not going to be released until September 20th, basically, it's like, why did we put them up if it's not real data? The key here is for familiarity. If they want to practice and all that, again, we don't know how much the numbers are going to change after the September 20 release of the California adjusted data. But if they were to submit a map tonight and say, I want this to be considered, I'd have a conversation with them saying, these data are estimated data only. Do you want to resubmit after September 20th when the actual data come out? And if not, I can say I'll try my best to represent your thoughts. But I just want to make sure that caveat is public and that you understand it as well. It's not a deal killer at all. So another tool that the city is using is called District R. This was a tool that was formed from students and staff at Tufts University. It's probably my favorite tool because it's the simplest tool, although it's only available in English. This particular tool has 4 items. You can see there's kind of that column to the right. It has what is a hand and a finger pointing up, a paintbrush, an eraser, and a magnifying glass. 4 simple tools. The finger is just to move the map around. The paintbrush is just what it's supposed to be used for, to paint in your districts in the various colors. The eraser is, oops, I made an error. And then the magnifying glass if you really want to drill down. It's really cool as an individual goes through that, they'll be able to see the population numbers by that district. And there's an ideal target for them to try to reach, so we have equal population in every district. So it does that for you, and they just submit it, save it and submit it, and it's a draft map. The one that I always say requires a lot of patience, it's called Maptitude's Online Redistricting from Caliper. It is available in various languages, but it does require a lot of patience. And then it also requires a lot of patience. And I don't know if I shared with you enough, but it requires a lot of patience. Individuals will make errors if they don't understand this particular tool. And probably the biggest error that they'll make is they'll use the back button on the browser and they'll lose everything that they've done. There's a help item on the menu there that they can look at to get assistance. This tool and the one I showed you before, District R, have video tutorials available. As well as documentation to help them. But it's actually a really powerful tool if folks have the skill set and the patience to apply this. Additionally, we're starting this now as well, is if individuals are using their own GIS software, they can just submit directly to us and through the redistricting email address that the city has. So we'd love for folks to stay connected. The city's already started the robust outreach through Facebook and the website, and you can see the contact information. And when you open the public hearing, we really like to get information on those 2 questions. What is your neighborhood and what are its boundaries, and what are the notable areas in the city and what are their boundaries? And then I'd be able to answer any questions that the commission might have about any of the mapping tools. And that concludes my presentation.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have questions?
I was going to ask, do we ask our questions at the end of the opportunity for the public to speak? Would that be better so as to facilitate the discussion, or would you want my questions now because I have several of them.
Yeah, jurisdictions, they vary on that. You can ask questions now, and then some of the responses could be the questions that might come up with the public.
My suggestion would be is that we wait for questions until we have the public give the input, and then we can go. But that would just be my suggestion.
Does the public have any questions?
We need to open up the public hearing. It's okay.